You've explained a few times that you avoided giant props on this movie. You didn't want it to seem like a 70s sci-fi thing. Why are giant props not the thing for 2015?
That's a good question. We did set up parameters and rules about our macro photography, and one of the main principles was we will never build an oversized prop. And there's a certain kind of DNA to building something and making it look like something versus using the actual object. And there's a certain DNA to like scaling things up versus scaling them true to what they are. We decided, you know what, let's just build all of our sets, our macro environment sets, as real scale. And by virtue of technology and different camera lenses, we were able to get in there and shoot them in ways that was never been able to be done before.
Did you expect to be designing superhero stuff when you were coming up? The industry's come a long way.
I felt
you've come a long way.
That's a good question.
It's also sucking up a little.
Yeah, I always felt like I was built for, well, first of all, any story that I connect to, I feel is a great opportunity to participate in. So if I feel like I connect to a character or a story or a storyline, I usually find relevance for me to participate in it. So I also happen to feel I'm also really interested in like a lot of puzzle pieces when putting together a film. So I really enjoy, creating the world that the film takes place in, and the more aspects there are to that world, the more interesting it is for me.
What was relevant for you for Ant-Man?
Well, it's at its core, it's about a guy who's trying to reconnect with his daughter. Okay, so he's trying to and I have a great connection with my daughter, and I value that.
But you imagine what it'd be like if you had to earn that back through superheroics.
Exactly. So if I felt like if there was anything threatening my relationship or connection with my children, I would do everything possible to gain that connection back. And that's what Scott Lang is doing. He's going to any lengths to make sure he can kind of maintain a connection with his daughter.
I noticed that Yellow Jacket's lair, we see a lot of hexagons, a lot of B patterns. Can you explain how you developed the two different Ant-Men through color and geometry?
One of the things that kind of jumped out for me was the opportunity to make the Futures Vault, which is a vault that is part of the Futures Lab, and it's the vault that had never been seen before by Hank Pym. The idea was like, how do we make this some kind of like subtle reference to a beehive of some degree, hence the dome. And at one point, that dome was in the main lab as an object. And that felt like we were kind of like hitting it over the head. I felt like it was like, we're just hitting it over
obvious,
Yeah, so let's maybe hide the geometry of it until you get inside of it. And then the hex, we needed the idea of like, once you were in the Futures Vault, I wanted the impression to be like you were really in the machine of the technology of the suit. So it's almost like being inside of a nuclear reactor where you press the wrong button, like stakes are high, like things are dangerous, and you happen to be inside the technology that is generating the suit.
Yeah, I noticed there was a different color palette in the outer lab, like the forward-facing thing, and in the epicenter, dark colors, a lot of steel, a lot of spaces that aren't normal square spaces.
Exactly, and that was the idea. It's just awkward spaces, in between spaces, spaces. When you're in that lab, while it was breathtaking, and it's like casino type of scale and getting lost in this like visually reflecting.
Or, windows.
Exactly, and like the big monolithic cube had no windows, so it was a perfect location for us to kind of like build this concept into. But the idea is that once you get into that lab, you want to feel lost, like you can never get out of it, and you're being consumed by the reflections, by the architecture. It's almost like a breathing animal.
It sounds like there will be a lot of chances to look into Darren Cross's mind in the DVD or on Disney Digital. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Awesome.